pleasure of speaking on behalf of Boris Treyzon, who has not just one jury verdict during this year, but two. And each one of these jury verdicts is not ordinary, it's extraordinary. Each one on its own is deserving of Trial Lawyer of the Year. The first case is a case called Guzman versus Avalon Foods. Boris represented George Guzman, a 52-year-old food truck driver, been around food trucks his whole life. And he was terribly injured one day when he stepped out of the truck to fetch a table and was hit by a car. Suffered a TBI, significant TBI, orthopedic injuries, but his medical bills were only $60,000 because it was Medi-Cal. And the difficulty with the case was finding a viable defendant. The driver had a $15,000 policy. The owner of the truck, Filma Chavez, had no workers' comp coverage. And Boris started digging. And he got creative, and he found out that the prior owner of that truck was Avalon Foods, owned by an Ed Unen. And there were no paper trail for the sale of that truck. Then he also found out that Avalon Foods and Ed Unen owned the commissary where all of these trucks would get groceries every single day, including this one. And not one single receipt, no paper trail of any transaction happening. And then he talked to his brain-injured client, who had significant short-term memory, but you know what? He had long-term memory. And he said, Ed Unen is the one that paid me. I've known him for years. He paid me cash. He gave me a shirt to wear as a uniform. And so he filed a lawsuit against Unen and Avalon under Labor Code 3708, which basically alleged that they were the actual employer and they were paying him cash and had no workers' comp. And if he succeeded in proving employment, then there's a presumption of liability, a presumption of negligence. That was phase one of the trial. He tried that case. And guess what? There was not one exhibit in the entire case, not a stitch of paper. The only witness he had to go on was his brain-injured client, who said that Ed Unen paid him cash. And you know what a stroke of brilliance was? He brought in his neurologist, he brought in the defense neurologist to testify that is George Guzman capable, with his brain injury, of lying? No, he can't do it. And so ultimately the jury agreed, and they found that Unen was the employer. Then you go to phase two, and he tries the case, and guess what, folks? Against a $50,000 offer, he hits for $8.3 million. 3 weeks later, 21 days later, he starts his second jury trial of the year. This was an insurance bad faith case, different type of case. What happened was a neighbor's tree fell on the client's property, and it hit the house and hit the swimming pool. State Farm accepted the claim and paid $70,000 for damage to the house. But then when they got the bill for the swimming pool, which had to be replaced for $446,000, pretty nice swimming pool, State Farm balked and said, we're not going to pay it. That was pre-existing soil conditions. So Boris files the bad faith case. Gets removed to federal court in front of Gary Klausner.
Oh, God.
Federal court trial. We complain about state court when we only get 20 minutes, 30 minutes to pick a jury. Federal court, 0 minutes. The entire jury was picked solely by Gary Klausner's questioning in 35 minutes.
Wow.
And case goes forward. They had 25 witnesses in this bad faith trial. 25 witnesses, 14 for the plaintiff, 11 for the defense. All of them were called. You would think 25 witnesses probably need 15 trial days to try that case?
2 days.
He didn't get 15 days. He didn't get 10 days. He didn't get 5 days. He got 5 hours to put on his entire case. 5 hours in federal court. 25 witnesses. He got through it. And guess what? Phase one, the jury came back. Unanimous verdict, because it's federal court. Unanimous verdict. Finding bad faith and awarding $896,000. $446,000 for the swimming pool. And get this, $446,000 for emotional distress for the fact that you didn't have your swimming pool.
Oh my.
No physical injuries. But more importantly, the jury found malice, oppression, and fraud unanimously. Those of you that don't do punitive damage cases, that means he proved by clear and convincing evidence that the conduct was so vile, base, contemptible, miserable, wretched, or loathsome that it would be looked down upon and despised by ordinary decent people. That's what he proved. So now he goes to phase 2, and guess what? You know how much time he's got left on the clock? 20 minutes.
Wow.
20 minutes to put on the entire punitive damage phase. 20 minutes, including closing argument. He does it, and guess what? 1 hour of deliberation, that federal court jury came back unanimously again against a $30,000 offer, $5 million in punitive damages. Boris would do this. He's been practicing for 24 years, got into law late in life. He immigrated from Russia when he was 14 years old, didn't speak a lick of English. And he's a passionate trial lawyer. He's been doing it for 24 years. In that 3-week window, by the way, he tried a bench trial by Zoom, co-tried it with Chris O'May and Thomas Johnson, and they won a final loss case in between there. And he's a dedicated trial lawyer. He's a member of the Bidart, Cohen, Treyzon, and CAALA firm. They are staunch CAALA supporters. Woo! Staunch CAALA supporters. And, you know, the reality is, Boris is so humble. You never hear him gloating about his victories. He's so humble about it. And he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves. And I'm hoping that tonight, that's about to change. Thank you very much.